It's funny that you use the adjective the Osajifo instead of an Osajifo.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I mean, I think at this point
the Osajifo would be Kwame Nkrumah.
right,
So why do you think you are
at
an
least
Osajifo?
There are several Osajifos now, right? Like
Okay.
the Domahine is also an Osajifo. But I think one of the things I think people forget all the time that I am unrepentant troll. I like trolling people. And I think that, in the beginning of the conversation we're having, there's so many people who, for whatever reasons, in their minds made a connection between what we were doing and the March for Independence of Nkrumah and others.
Yeah.
And so immediately our detractors started talking about how, this guy thinks he is Kwame Nkrumah. This guy thinks that he is Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah.
And so for which reason I was like, okay, let them die, right? Like, let's add the Osajifo to them, and then maybe.
So you wanted to add to their chest pains?
Yes, I wanted to add to their chest pains, and that's it. Then for some reason, it's just kind of stuck for so long. Sometimes I've thought about, this was like this was a troll, and at some point I wanted to revert to my own identity, but. Every time I've kind of chopped the idea, people are like, no, keep it.
Keep it.
I think some people understand the funny and, the humorous part of it. And sadly, others also have come to believe in some power in it. I don't necessarily share that. And obviously, the chest pains are still have not reduced. So let's keep it going.
So the question many want to know is, Oliver, why? Why are you stressing the government? Why do you keep talking about coups? Why do you keep talking about the military being useless? Are you thirsty for a coup? What exactly is it?
I've always been very thirsty for a coup. I've always been very clear, though, that the kind of coup you're talking about is that it has to be a different kind of coup. That I have no respect for military lawlessness. And one of the questions I always posed is, if I see the military are useless, I don't know whether they are making themselves more useful by acting illegally.
Okay.
It seems a contradictory point to make, right? What I'm trying to de-emphasize, though, is the normality of how we have used the military in a constitutional democracy. And I want people to reflect on that. But when you're talking about a coup, we are talking about a change.
Is it a change in mindset?
A change in mindsets and change the way in which we engage the state, and a change in, our own disposition vis-a-vis the public good and what we need to protect it. But I know that the word is irritating. And I like the fact that it irritates because it sets you up to think. It sets up for confusion, but at least it sets up a conversation. And let's have a conversation once we get beyond the shock of the initial word. Unfortunately, some people get stuck in the initial word.
But do you blame them?
The government itself is stuck in the initial word.
Do you blame them? There's a lot happening in the sub-region. I mean, there's Mali, there's Niger, there's Burkina Faso to look at.
Yeah.
You don't expect them to be stuck there?
If we want to build a true republic, we don't have the luxury to be stuck on words. We have to search for a deeper meaning of what it means to have a democracy. And if we don't want to do that work, then perhaps we deserve to stay in that confusion and shock and whatever it is the world procures for us. But I think that the process of building, a democracy that respects our rights requires that we engage why other countries around us are falling. Right? Like when everything else around us is falling apart, we must ask ourselves why. And what similarities do we share with our neighbors that could make that happen? So we are engaging that process and that conversation. And I dare say that Face the Country, more than any social group in this last few years, has done more to keep our democracy going than anything else. We have done, even by our protests, people don't understand how much it takes for people to show up at a protest and the pain and the frustration that gets aired out. Frustrations and disenchantment with democracy breaks down democracy. And when people have an opportunity to be able to be heard, that preserves democracy better. So you can stay in the irony of it, but you can look at the things we are doing. We can look at the fact that the same military that we are talking about, we have sued them for some of the things that they did in Nigeria, that we have taken the military on for the fact that they descended on citizens in Ashaman and brutalized them. These are hard conversations that we need to have. And anybody who has been a close follower of anything we have been doing and where we have mobilized, know that we are constantly criticizing the military for their excesses and what those who claim to love this democracy are using them to do. That is a problem.
But then again, they would say that whenever there is an announcement of a coup in any country, you jubilate.
One of the things I ask the question for many Africans is that we need to contextualize coups. If a coup happened today in Cameroon, I would jubilate. I don't think it makes any democratic sense for Paul Biya to be there for 2 lifetimes. People's grandparents have died, their parents and they are born and nearing death, and this guy is still running for president at the point where his pants are leaking, he can't even hold his urine. It doesn't make sense, right? If a coup should happen in Togo, I would jubilate. I don't think that the Yadema regime there is one that is committed to a democratic conversation or a democratic change. You understand? Now, I need a different kind of coup to happen in Ghana. I need a constitutional change through the instruments of the people's demands for change.
Yeah.
I need our democracy to solidify. But business as usual now, I don't want it. And if we think that this is perfect, then I don't want to participate in that regime. And I will be loud in saying that, no, this is not the destination we dream for ourselves upon independence. We envisage better. We envisage for ourselves where our governments and the associated politicians don't poison our water. That is what we are asking for. And if this is what people want, then I'm sorry, I'll have to express a different preference and opinion.
You know, you've talked about, I mean, one of your main campaigns has been for an overhaul of our constitution. Yeah. Some have suggested that we don't need to redo the constitution in simple terms. They say that aspects need to be amended. Yeah. Why do you believe that our constitution needs a total overhaul?
So one of the things that we ought to remember that the constitution is the handmaiden of the society. That it invites us to define for ourselves a vision of a republic that we want. And I ask myself now, when we look at the republic that we set up in 1992 and the republic we have now, does it need light touches here and there, or we need serious governance reforms?
You believe we need serious governance
reforms? I think that we
reforms?
need serious governance reforms. I think that we are retrogressing as a country.
You believe
when you think about the fact that so many young people are now more employed than when Rawlings did the coup in 81, that is shocking statistics to look at. When you look at it, so many more people in poverty today than there were then. You mean
there are more people who are unemployed?
Unemployed today.
Okay.
And more people in and below the poverty line today than there was in 1981. What kind of republic are we setting up for ourselves? So for me, it doesn't take textual changes here and there. And sometimes when you talk about a constitutional conversation, people say, oh, let us decouple Minister of Justice and Attorney General. These are like superficial, non-committal changes. Why are we changing? Why are we making amendments? We need to redefine and re-engage the basis of our society. It doesn't make sense to me, for instance, if all development is local, that our constitution prescribes that only 5% of our resources should be sent down to the districts for development. Why 95% is kept for Accra politicians for them to misuse? It doesn't make sense to me. Why would they not engage in pet projects like this cathedral that is turned into a swimming pool and a laughing joke? So that's, for me, we have to ask ourselves critical questions. That the vast majority of resources ought to be committed to areas beyond Accra. In fact, it is so ridiculous that at the point we had the Minister for Beautification of the capital city. Like, other people deserve a chance to have a decent life. And we are engaging in frivolities. Because we have set up a constitutional framework that says, oh, Toby Afede came out and said that Council of State, I went for like 3 or 4 meetings. Why am I getting $500,000? And people were like, but how does that make sense? The justice of it. We have teachers who work 30 years and their pension is less than 30,000 when they leave office. So how is that a just society? And those changes can only come through constitutional reform.
Yeah.
No other way. Now, when we say we should have a constitutional conversation, because we want to prevent the touch and go approach, oh, we've done something, let's move on, that we say that we need to open up the entirety of the document for a genuine constitutional conversation across the country.
Didn't we
do the Constitution Review Commission tried to do that conversation?
That's what. And
when they did at the time, they recommended nearly 300 changes to the Constitution. Is that not almost an entire rewrite of a document that has 258 provisions, 296 provisions? Right? That's almost an entire rewrite of the document on a 1,000-page report. So we can engage in the semantics. Oh, is it a rewrite? Is it a holistic overview? But the conversation is that, and I've always challenged those who believe that a piecemeal approach should work. Show us evidence of the piecemeal you have used. For how many years we have had this conversation? From the beginning of the Republic, people say they wanted to reform the Constitution. But we haven't even changed the word there for those who want to go piecemeal. So maybe if they start changing there to a, or things like that, it's like, oh, your piecemeal is working. Then we can then begin to think that, okay, let's dismantle the conversation around a more holistic change and go by changing footsteps and commerce.
Now, the conversation about the overhaul of the Constitution, do you think that majority of the people side with you
Yeah.
in that, or they do not perhaps appreciate the magnitude of perhaps the challenges the current document,
You know what's bizarre? That consistently, over 98% of Ghanaians say they want some constitutional reform in some form. And of course, across the spectrum, we are divided as to whether those who want some piecemeal change, those who are calling of a holistic review, they like those words as well, and then an upgrade. I should probably ask reset before somebody says something else. And then, of course, those who have looked at the issues and said that all these things are more likely achievable if we sat down with a document and tried to rewrite. So across the spectrum, there are at least a lot of support for reform. But despite the only issue on which Ghanaians consistently to poll to want reform is the one we have taken the least action on. So why? And the problem is simple. Ordinary Ghanaians have no way of making an input to directly change the constitution or to change any provision thereof. It is, in fact, those who are part of the problem. So the political class, the executive and parliament, that have the power of initiative to amend or initiate constitutional amendment conversations. It's not a case in other democracies. In Kenya, citizens can sponsor the popular initiative. We don't have that. So they say the constitution belongs to us and we the people, but we the people actually have no way of getting involved in changing anything about this document. And so we are relying on this political class to give up their ex gratia, to give up their $500,000 after 3 meetings and say that, okay, fine, teachers deserve more. It's not going to happen. So how is it going to happen unless we push the Republic to say, let us have a holistic review? That's the only way, I think. But, well, people are entitled to doubt me, and for how many years they have continued to doubt, and we are still here. I'm hopeful that at least I don't hit retirement before we get there, but maybe not,
And I'll take you back to the conversation about the coup I mentioned. I mean, at the moment, you are in court.
Yeah.
And does it surprise you that I see that from time to time on social media, you talk about how the trial is going and
or not going?
I mean, where are you guys at the moment?
I wish I knew, honestly, because sometimes I'm so confused that the persons who are claiming that they have evidence of me trying to overthrow, what's his name again? The short one, what's his name?
The president?
President
Akufo-Addo.
Well, sometimes they get confused as to whether or not I want to overthrow him or I want to overthrow the constitution. Sometimes I can't even keep track. But the funny thing is that how many years has it been now? Since 2021. We haven't started any trial. Like, we haven't. And in fact, the constitution, the law says that when a person is standing trial, you can't adjourn a case for more than a month. We have done 3 months adjournment. We are just there. And it's because we have a judiciary that lacks I want to say balls, but
are you not part of it?
But I'm entitled to then. I think it behoves us who are part of the legal profession to talk about the dysfunction of our judiciary and of the legal system we have set up. That we have a justice system that lacks the balls and throw away these ridiculous charges. Because everybody is looking at the executive and begging for appointments and hoping to be promoted. And so anything that they put in front of them, they'll do it. But that's also a constitutional fault. Because the design makes it such that judges are begging the executive to get promoted. In fact, we have the Chief Justice at a point who was begging the presidency to give them the allowances. We had the current Chief Justice writing to the president to beg him to appoint people to the Supreme Court. So everything is lopsided in an upside-down republic. And of course, the effects of it is what we are seeing. And so the government can then decide to pick up as many political opponents and persons who are dissenting from Atu Forcing to a nobody like myself and slap them with all kinds of religious charges. And there's no consequences. That is the problem.
And this will be the last question I ask on the coup element of the conversation about it. There are people who have said that, yes, you're talking about an intellectual coup, for instance. The need for us to challenge the system and demand better as a people from the people we elect to govern on our behalf. There are people who have said that people will mistaken what you're saying. They may not necessarily go beyond what they see that you're talking about an intellectual coup d'etat. They would think that people should pick up arms and stuff, and that is why you should refrain from talking about making such comments on social media and all that.
I think there was a time when Galileo had said that the world was round or oval and not flat, and he was killed for it. Many years later, it didn't change the truth of what he said. If we want to push our society intellectually, we must not resolve from that obligation to do so because the tendency of people to misunderstand us and still insist that the world is flat would persist. I don't think so. I think that if we do that, then it's a disservice to the conversation we need to have. But let's remind ourselves, and I think that this is the funny point for me. I haven't seen in this republic the people lead an unconstitutional overthrow of government. It is the government, it is the state that has always done that to itself. And by the state, I mean the military, which is part of the state's own infrastructure. So the political class have always done that to themselves. Who am I? And who are we, the people, ordinary citizens? So I don't think that citizens have ever acted to overthrow the republic. And I don't see it happening in a long time. So if they are concerned, they need to sit down with they themselves and have their own understanding that, we must continue to abide by the people's constitution. And I hope they do, because the people love to live in a democracy that respects their rights.
So this path that you are on, don't you get tired? Don't you get discouraged at a certain point? Because sometimes it may appear as though you are a lone voice in a situation where there's a lot of other people talking about other things. You are the single person perhaps pointing to a particular issue. Don't you get tired that it's not going to work? Perhaps you should just, mind your business, go back to school and stop commenting on social media.
There are perhaps three comments I would make to that. I think that is the curse of every activist or person who cares about anything, to at various points feel like you're a lone voice. But you're never alone. Right? There are millions of people who are saying the same thing. The truth is that more people are afraid than there are people who don't share what we are saying and who don't believe in that. And that's a thing. And I always ponder on the fact that so many people live in a republic of fear. Now, what does it say? Does it say that then we should check out and then go and sleep? How have we added to the culture of silence and the continual fear? Right? So that's the first thing I think about. The second thing as well is that if not you, then who? Right? Because I think that and that's the funny thing. Like, we all want the dream of living in a better democracy, but we rather that it is not our son. The truth is, even for those who are biblical believers, when God sent his own son, his son got to some point and said, if it's possible, let this cup pass me by. Right? Like, those moments of human frailty, even the premium Osajifo at some point went to Gethsemane and prayed.
The premium savior.
The premium savior himself got to some point that was like, maybe this cup should pass me by. It is human. But he didn't resile. He continued nonetheless. And perhaps there's a lesson for that. But perhaps that's the most Christian thing we should do.
And your parents get worried, don't they?
I get worried. They should as well.
And
they are not the only parents, right? There's so many other parents who are crying for what is going to happen.
But must you do this at all costs? Do you think that it is your... someone would say that, you think you were born for this? This is Ghana. Nothing will change. Maybe
it shouldn't. But the fact is that I've committed to myself to live true to my values. Those values won't change.
Okay.
Right? And I always reflect on the fact that since 2021, when we started, everybody was saying that you're going to die. I'm still here. People who haven't done anything I have done from our dysfunctional healthcare system. Just a couple of days ago, a high court slapped 5 million on 37 military hospital for causing the death of someone.
Yeah.
They're dying from the very things that they wish we stopped talking about. So, maybe it's appointed to man to die once. And when we do, then that's it. At least we have lived an authentic life. It's my feeling.
It's your feeling. And there are others who also say that, look, this whole agenda or fix the country and all that and these demonstrations, behind it, if they lift the veil, there are NDC elements behind it that are pushing this. And so this agenda that is being, pursued by Democracy Hub, all the people who are part of this, they're just fronting for, the political class who will eventually, take over the helm of affairs should there be a change in government. And they would cite, for instance, Occupy Ghana as an example, that there were people who participated in the process. They've had the opportunity to govern and led the country to places where they didn't even think would ever get. Things they criticized, they are doing the worst form of it. And so they look at this and they say that, look, it is no different from what we have seen in the past. Behind these people are NDC elements.
I don't blame them, I've always said. I've always said that we didn't get here by accident. Like, let nobody think that, this dysfunction came out of nowhere. That we are all responsible somehow for it. And the fact that there's no template for what we were doing and still saying, and that the only template people had was these comparisons of how these movements have come up and disappointed Ghanaians, have laundered their pains to support the political class. It's a reason for them to be skeptical. And the only way we can continue to answer that is not by more and more press statements telling them otherwise. It's to live a life of an example. And then when we've lived a life of an example, 3 years down the line, they come and tell us, aren't you tired? Do you understand what the irony of it? So we want to continue to do that, but we must continue to give them an example. So that tomorrow, maybe when a more formidable social movement comes out, they would say, do not be like Occupy Ghana, be like Face the Country. Be like Occupy Jilobia. Right? Like, that is something at the very least. But on the point of the NDC, the NDC has shown consistently that if they wanted to do their own demonstrations, they don't need to hide behind anybody else. Tuesday, they were demonstrating, even though we have a demonstration planned on Saturday, within the same week. It is possible to understand that our democracy can contain both political parties and social movements. And we should not necessarily be seeking the same ends. That if one is organized around the competitive politics of getting an election, others can also mobilize around social goods and citizens' protection rights. And that is fine. So protests are not only open to politicians and political class, but it's also a warning to people who do these kinds of things that you are undermining faith in the democracy when you show up. If you want to be political, you want to join and support a political party, have no shame in that and do that with your chest.
And, I think at the height of Fix the Country, there were people who said that, there are, for instance, elements within the movement that are being funded by the NDC, that at the end of every month there is some, token that is given. I think there was a point where, and I don't know if you're comfortable that I'm bringing up this element of Ernesto Yeboah, for instance, who backed out of the movement, and he made all sorts of allegations that the NDC was, playing a role in all this. So, what exactly is it?
So let's talk about the Economic Fighters League, right? They were one of the initial conveners of Fix the Country, and it got to a point that they were very hell bent on the idea that the only way for change is to constitute ourselves into a political party and fight for the change. If not, the people are left with no option but to vote for either of the duopoly. And I understand that argument. My whole life I've been making the argument, the case for a third party. But I looked within myself and I asked myself, am I the one to create a party? And is this what we should be doing at these early stages of what we are doing? I didn't believe that was it. But they had a different ideological, and I respect that. Consistently, I said, if they went ahead and formed it, I would vote for it, And so, but then bizarrely, they chose to hold a press conference. And instead of stating clearly these ideological reasons, they then suggested that Face the Country and the mobilizing we're doing it for other people. And when they were pushed on proof, they didn't provide any. Well, the election cycle, parliamentary process is over. And then also, I think the presidential as well is over.
Yes, they are vetting
the Economic Fighters League did not present candidates at parliamentary elections, nor at the presidency. So it's really confusing what has happened and why they did not go on to build a political project as they were committed to. Because at that same press conference, they announced both their withdrawal and their intention to contest the next elections. It hasn't happened. As always, I give the time the benefit to prove what it is we are saying. And I think that from the fact that people are consistently supported what we are doing, people have made up their own minds as to where the truth lies. And I think that's the best answer to any of those.
So you're not being funded by the NDC?
I have never received a PESWA from the NDC, and I like it that way. I have no intention to. We'll continue to crowdfund, and as we have crowdsourced, as we have done, ask people to do more donations. If we get 1,000, we use it for whatever ends it is. We put sometimes our own money into it. We put our energies into it. And wherever it is, that's enough, right? If the NDC wants to organize their events, they do their own thing. But we can both coexist. But the fact that, everybody thinks the only way that people can mobilize themselves and fund their local initiatives is that those who have been in power and who have used the public purse for nefarious ends must continue to use that money to fund every civic initiative is a problem. And it makes me question in many ways also some CSOs who are behind this project of public financing of political parties. Like, all these parties are so powerful in themselves. Civic groups are entirely reliant on donor funds. If anything the public should fund, it should fund more NGOs to challenge the government. Okay. But no, it's a republic of stale ideas. There's nothing fresh thinking.
So you don't think that there is reason in those who say that there should be the state financing of political parties to help check how costly our elections are?
State financing can come in the political process to correct the deficiencies of our process. One, the fact that we are a majority female country and we have less females in our parliament. If the state put up a fund to support female politicians and support inclusion, I'm all for it. We must use public funds to serve a public good, a particular public good. If the state is concerned about the lack of young people in our parliament and say that we're setting up a fund for people to apply to, and that those people can do so and assess the fund on equitable basis to be able to run campaigns, I'm all for it.
Okay.
But I am not supporting this, business of writing blank checks to those who have stolen the same wealth that we're supposed to protect. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And let's talk about your upcoming protest now. I mean, I've taken you around. 21st to 23rd.
Yeah.
First of all, what are you protesting against? What is it?
Yeah. So sometimes a protest is not, despite the word protest, it's not protesting against something but for something. And so the two things that are driving the conversation around this. One is something we have said consistently, that the real issue on the table is the need for holistic constitutional reforms. We have always made that a part of our conversation in every protest. Immediately now, there's an urgent environmental crisis that we are looking at and everybody is tiptoeing around. And that we have seen, UTAG, for instance, release a statement. We think that it ought to be supported by the galvanized people who understand and appreciate the urgency of what irresponsible mining has done to us across board, not only Galamsey. Yeah. Because people have a tendency to call Galamsey illegal mining, meaning that all you need to do is a permit. But we have institutions, the Minerals Commission, the Forestry Commission, the EPA, granting permits to people to mine in our forest reserves. Reserves that are supposed to protect because they become a source of generating drinking water and other things to us. To be able to mine in riverbeds, that is a problem. So irresponsible mining includes not only the private actors, but also the state actors. And we're asking that we can't just be looking at this problem and be watching one documentary from another and be like, hey, it's bad though. And be making jokes about our waters have turned into Milo and all kinds of things. When we are being poisoned, that is an urgent environmental crisis and thing that we want to galvanize public.
You don't think we are taking it as seriously as we ought to? I mean, this is maybe the first time in a long while we have seen, civil society, other professional organizations, organized labor, all of them speaking up and asking for action, most of them calling for a ban on mining activities in general for us to sort ourselves out. You don't think we're taking it seriously?
So your question itself is revealing of the answer, which is that this is the first time, right? So, and we've lived with this for how many years now? And you had the president who claimed to be putting his presidency on the line for this. What did that mean? Did it mean he would resign? Was he calling for the people to impeach him if he didn't do it? What was he asking for when he said he was putting his presidency on the line? Now, he
was telling us how committed he was to ensuring that this
you can say the word I am committed to. But if you're putting something on the line, it means you're willing to give something. That's how I understand it. He hasn't given that. People say now he's collecting side quests, which is, jumping from one, honorary doctorate to another that people are willing to. Like, I don't understand. Well, again, that's also another institutional politics that we can get lost in. But I think that we ought to stay on point. The fact that there's this groundswell happening means that we must consolidate the groundswell. But most importantly, our our protests, who do they appeal to the most? Young people.
The young people.
Whose futures are most at stake in this conversation? Young people. It should not be left to press statement writing CSOs alone. We must show support. So the conversation will be multifaceted. The voices calling for reform will be different. Those who are demanding responsibility will be different. Example, the Forestry Commission in 2016 issued the Forestry Development Master Plan, where they said by 2035, there would be no mining in forest reserves. In fact, they said by 2016, from then on to now, they would not issue no forest entry permits and no mining licenses will be issued in forest reserves. The Minerals Commission boss said that he didn't even know of something that has been in existence as government policy. The Forestry Commission itself has continued to issue consistent forest entry permits to this point. So where is the commitment to protecting our environment from these various institutions? But nobody's taking responsibility. Nobody is resigning. Nobody is firing anybody. We must treat this as something that imperils our future. And that's what we are trying to do. Now, people can see in that our calling for the protection of our water bodies as a, what did you call it, an NDC funded project, or whatever, but we are all getting poisoned at the end of the day. So we will choose to go out, and you can choose to continue to drink the poisoned water. But enough is enough, is what we are saying.
And you are asking, yesterday there was a press conference where you are asking for you asked for a number of things. You're asking for the resignation of the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. That's Samuel Abujinapo, right? And then you're also asking for the Mineral Commission boss's head. Yes. Who else are you asking to resign?
For EPA boss, and Forestry Commission as well. So the Minerals, EPA, and Forestry, then the two sectorial ministers who are in charge.
And why do you think they should go? Because the minister, for example, it is a similar question was put to him by a former friend of yours, an activist as well, Okatechi Efrifa, where he said that for the minister, he doesn't think he has done a good job considering where we are at the moment, and that he should probably be stepping aside for another person to take over. The minister says he thinks he's done a good job.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than people who have lost the faith in what they are supposed to be doing, but need to keep their jobs. I don't, when the minister is answering that question, he wants the role, but not the responsibility of it and what it means when he has failed in that role. If we can look at what has happened to us and tell us that he has not failed and he's doing a good job, what does it tell we, the citizens? This is our minister. The job is ours to give. And so that we should be entitled to evaluate these people and say, step aside. But they should not then be so interested in clinging to the power and then we'll be like, he himself has said that he is doing a good job. What can we say? Whom am I to demand? No. Right? I think the point we have consistently emphasized is that there can't be accountability for key institutions when they fail to act. And that responsibility must begin. Well, as it stands now, nobody seems to be interested in impeaching
the president?
Forgetting his name. The president, voila.
Are you forgetting his name, or is it just a protest?
I keep forgetting his name. I don't know.
I doubt.
And he himself who put his presidency on the line is refusing to resign. And Ghanaians are not resigning from the obligation to impeach him. Some people believe that, after all he's done, let's let him go. I hate the fact that he's leaving office without, and some, indelible mark on him, including an attempted impeachment of him.
I mean, even if, do you think...
But his appointees as
Do you think the parliament we have at the moment can impeach the president? It's not possible.
So why do we make constitutional provision for it and yet we elect a parliament that does not?
An attempt was made to impeach the finance minister. It did not work. How much more a president?
From the very beginning of when we started the Face the Country protest, and I've always said, I had never done a protest ever. So I reached out to people like, the way things are going, won't you guys do a protest? And the answer was the government would never allow. And then I said, then I'll do it. Right? The idea that it will not be successful should not be a reason why we stop something. Now here we are. So I've always felt that even the fact of doing something shows a moral repulsion. It shows putting on record that we did not agree with this. And when we tried in the process. So not to try something because of a fear of failure, it's not to be a leader after all.
And at the moment, the protest, what is the status of it? Because yes, the earlier announcement was that it's taking place from the 21st to the 23rd.
Yes.
So Saturday to Monday.
Yes.
Saturday is Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day, and you chose it for a reason, I suppose.
Yeah.
And there was a notice from the police that they had secured a prohibition order.
Yeah.
First of all, what has been your engagement like with the police after informing them of your protest?
You know, the law says that we should inform the police at least 5 days to the protest. What we did is that we informed the police at least 3 months to the protest.
3 months?
3 months. And the reason why we did that, one is that they should give them the chance to prepare and prioritize the protest. And this is what we have consistently done. And then they waited 2 days to the protest to go and secure an injunction. After 2 months, they wrote to us asking us to change the date and where we wanted to do it. And we said, no, we're not going to do that, as the law entitles us to do. And so we didn't hear back from them again. So apparently we heard on radio that they said they had gone to secure a court order. We ourselves have not been served with a court order.
You haven't been
served? So we've heard it on radio, we don't know it. And then subsequently, they have issued a statement that, in fact, they are going to show up and they are going to respect the Public Order Act by putting in place processes for the planned demonstration this weekend. And then they have indicated that they will release security arrangements today by that same press statement. Now, this is what should be clear. When we heard the news yesterday, our position was clear across board that with or without injunction, we are stepping out.
You are going to
because
go?
we don't have a commitment to respect unconstitutional injunctions. It has been said time and time again. In fact, we have gone on to the Supreme Court on this, that no court is entitled to issue an ex parte injunction to stop a protest. And so ab initio, anything that violates the Constitution is void as it stands. So even if one existed, we are going to go ahead and do it. The humorous thing is that those who have gone to procure for themselves an injunction are then, and they have a copy, we haven't been served at least, have then decided an about 10 that they are in fact going to turn up there, in fact violating the same order they have gone to. Perhaps after the protest, we'll then take them on for contempt. But now, we are clear, whatever the case may be, that we're going to show up at the protest, whatever they do. And that if the only thing they have is arrest, so be it. But the point must be made that we are showing up and turning up for a protest. And if they have had a change of heart about it, I hope that they're able to secure for their own sake a cancellation of that invalid order as well at the same time.
And so at the moment, the protest, let me just, for our listeners, let me just read the statements, the very recent statement from the police beyond the prohibition order that was circulated on various platforms. It says that the Ghana Police Service would like to assure the public that sufficient measures have been put in place to maintain law and order, as well as ensure peace and security for the upcoming planned demonstration by the Democracy Hub group, slated for 21st to the 23rd of September 2024. The Ghana Police Service will provide further details on the security measures for the planned demonstration tomorrow, which is today, Thursday, 19 September 2024. So your earlier engagements, they had concerns with the routes you were going to use. Is that it? Or your converging point? What exactly?
Yes. There are concerns with the fact that we're converging at the Revolutionary Square, which is opposite Julobi House.
And are you still going to go there?
Oh, yes. I mean, that's what we've legally notified them of.
The last time the protest you had, there was a barricade.
Yes,
right before the Jubilee House.
Yes, the police acted unlawfully by blocking where they had been notified for us to go.
Don't you foresee a similar thing happening?
I've always counted on the Ghana Police Service to act illegally. It's my reality of them, to be honest.
Illegally?
Yes, because they'll be violating the law. So it's my reality of them, and we move about with the expectation that they would violate it. I expect very little from them. As far as we are concerned, we're only concerned about what it is that we will do. We will try to show up where we've agreed, and if they stop us, we'll continue to knock on the door for the 3 days that we are there, asking them to respect the law as we did the last time. But there's no point where anybody from Face the Country, anybody we're organizing, is going to engage the police in a fist fight or whatever it is. The fact that our institutions are given to acting illegally doesn't mean that we are going to engage in the same lawlessness.
And what does
there must be an adult in the room after all.
And what does this mean about 10? What signal does it send you as a group that you are organizing this protest?
The first thing that the police would not have done this at about 10 if we hadn't made it clear that we are showing up regardless of what they have done. And they know that it will put the fact that from October last year, they have received 4 successive injunctions again face the country. And it seems that everybody else is allowed to protest in this country, but the young people.
Why?
I have no idea what they're afraid of. I have zero. I am surprised. It's interesting the level of commitment the status quo is to locking young people out of the
Do you think
constitutional conversation.
Do you think that because you are part of it is a reason?
Because I am part of it.
Yes.
But who am I?
No, but
I am nobody.
The concern is that you are making comments on social media about coups and stuff, so they're
But
afraid
no,
that you're
but
going to whip up sentiments and then do the unthinkable.
With our mouths. Well, we've consistently made it clear that we are not going to carry arms. I don't believe. I have never seen a gun on old and gun or done anything. I'm a pacifist, right? I believe in the power of the voice. I think the voice is mighty. I think the pen is mighty, and we'll continue to use it to ridicule the institutions. So, me as an individual, the biggest weapon you're going to find me carrying that day is going to be nothing but my voice. And so if that's what the whole institution is afraid of, then this democracy is more fragile than we think it is. I don't know. I do think that there's an institutional fear that those who have been locked out of the politics that disenfranchises them are going to wake up that day. And nobody's doing that work of engaging young people and engaging the marginalized more than we are. So I know that those who are the oppressors have more fear of the oppressed than they have of their own partakers. And I know for a fact that the system is more afraid of fix the country than it is of the NDC because they are partakers of the same system. And so naturally, I'm not surprised, and we expect it, but we'll continue to mobilize. It doesn't stop us.
It doesn't stop you. So what routes are you using on the day?
We are not going to walk for long. We're asking most people to come to 37 Church Station.
Okay.
And then we, casually stroll to the Revolutionaries.
That's all you're going to do.
That's all we ask.
And
on Saturday.
What are you seeking to achieve?
We are drawing the state's attention to our environmental crisis. The fact that galamsey and irresponsible mining is destroying the legacy that we can leave for tomorrow and our own selves. We don't want to wake up to a Ghana where we are ending up importing water. That is not the republic that was envisaged for us. That's all the conversation is about.
What do you want government to do? What exactly? Beyond the resignation you're asking for, what do you want to be done about this environmental crisis?
Your feeling is that the resignations, they will do that.
Would they?
No, that's your feeling, because we already asked, and then I like to ask for more. After all, I'm Oliver.
I'm asking.
So nobody asks for more than I do. So but what I'm asking is that, okay, let's start with first accountability institutionally. So once we have held institutional accountability, it opens up the door for persons who can have a genuine commitment to fixing the problem to engage. Now, those who have then been partakers of the problem, those whose cronies and associated and affiliated people have registered companies to mine in our forests and destroy our waters themselves, should not be part of the solution seeking. If we are not honest with that accountability seeking, none of the measures we're going to go ahead will be fixed. That is the beginning point. So let's start with the beginning point. Let's not ask too much. Yeah.
Not that I'm being a pessimist, but I think that history guides us with a lot of things. Do you foresee a possible resignation from these individuals you have cited?
I don't know. Somebody perhaps wiser than me once said that power concedes nothing without demand. And so if we do not ask for it, it's not going to happen. That's the first thing. Now, what happened with when TUC and organized labor issued a statement around Bernard Champon's
the hotel acquisition.
The hotel situation, right? The same, hotel that what's that man's name again? Who
Brian Champon?
No,
President Kufuor.
Yeah, the president decided that he didn't see what the fuss about what we're talking about was. When organized labor spoke up and said they were going on strike and shutting down the country, immediately they reversed it.
But subsequently, the president said the brouhaha was unnecessary.
You see, whatever his name
President Kufuor said, I will help you.
Whenever you
forget, I'll mention the same for you.
He himself has checked out of the role. He said that
the president
maybe he's left. Yes, he said that maybe the next person who is coming can come and fix it. So this guy is on holiday. Essentially, it's just his lame duck president. They say in
he's
America.
Not. He said he's very much in charge.
Oh no! You can say words, but it's not words, right? It's a lame duck individual who I I do hope with that. Sometimes I wonder if it's as all his faculties, but then again, that's a different conversation. So, but nothing is giving us that indication that he does. So we shouldn't take his word seriously at any point. So I have no trust that he left to his own devices would do anything other than play with his toys than engage the nation in a serious conversation about accountability and how we move forward. He was always going to come out and defend his appointees. He's always done that. That's what he's going to do. But we should not take his lessons and what he's willing to, the minimum and the barest minimum he's willing to give us and say, they won't do anything, so we shouldn't demand. We'll continue to knock on that door.
You continue to knock on that door until something substantial happens. But in the case they do not resign?
Then we continue to do what we've always done. We've shown up, and we continue to expect people to ask us, are you not tired?
So would you agree with those who say that, so you want it to be on record that at least you tried? Is that it?
No, I don't settle for defeat. I anticipate that, like I said, I don't expect anything to be given to us on a silver platter. And so the likelihood of those in power refusing a demand is normalized and natural in our politics. While it is not sustained and normalized enough, it's not giving up on our demand. That is the part we are fixing. That is what, for us, it requires for us to do, and that's what we are doing. That we are not giving up on our demand, we continue to make it. Now, till the point where they have no other option, and to where most Ghanaians are able to join in, then sure. But we ourselves will not let the fact that somebody is giving us the minimum, meaning that we must scramble for the breadcrumbs they throw on the ground. And
you think that increasingly many more people are buying into this idea?
Well, from the very beginning, when we started this, we engaged, as part of Face the Country, we engaged Organized Labour, TUC. We had several meetings with them. And the point that if you demand something and you threaten to shut down this country, it would happen, was a point that we continuously emphasized in our meetings with them and continue to do so now. Now, they tested the waters and saw it happen. For us, that's progress. That's showing that the people can seize their power at any time. What we're asking for is more consistency. So it's happened. And more consistency will change the face of this country for good.
All right. So 21st to the 23rd.
Yes.
And how would you ensure that your members or whoever chooses to participate is staying within the law?
You know what is interesting? We've had so many protests in this country, everybody can attest to that. At none of these protests has a single person been injured or anything bad to them. Or at none of these protests anybody not stayed within the law. So we have no, concern that Ghanaians who have always been law-abiding will show up and be law-abiding. We can't trust the police not to be law-abiding, and we expect them to not respect the law. So we hope that the state itself is thinking about how can we better discipline ourselves when we have not done so in the past. But for us, our responsibility is to keep people safe. And for that, we have marshals who are going to show up, direct people, help people, provide water, provide food, have an ambulance on standby if anybody gets tired, needs to go and rest and take a bit of glucose so he can come back energized. That is our concern. And, prioritizing the welfare of the people who come there is always going to be something we consider our chief pride. And
just as we've seen this seeming U-turn from the police, do you anticipate another U-turn?
I anticipate. I always anticipate the less.
Or regardless, what matters the most to you is that you are showing up.
Yes, we are showing up. Whether they turn about, turn around, turn ahead, that's their own institutional politics. As far as we are concerned, we are showing up. I mean, we are exercising a constitutional right, and whatever they do does not regard us. In fact, we don't need them to be there. We can exercise our constitutional right without them. Whether they decide to show up or not is their own concern.
All right. Do you have any final words?
I mean, I think that the most important thing that we have always said, and we can't, underemphasize the point, that the health and, the future of this democracy is not the job of a few. That all of us must reflect deeply that isn't it enough with the YouTube videos and the documentaries about what is happening to our environment that we say, I want to step out and demand different this time. It's all we're asking. And it's the least you can commit to. Just come, stand about, hold a placard, grant an interview, express yourself on the point. That's it. And you go home. And that's all we're asking people to show up.
That's all you're asking. Yeah. And is there going to be a point where people can converge and join the protest, or you just have to show up on your own?
So the convergence point is the
37.
37
So
Church
people just have
station.
to make their way there.
But people can come in groups. I think that the fun thing about the demonstration is that it's even best when you do it as a fun group activity. It's a holiday weekend, right? Monday is a holiday. So you and your friend groups can come and, order. Incidentally, Rockstone's Watcher is just crossed by. Or you can order anything. You can sit there and share a meal and talk about the Republic, and we can discuss and have conversation. That is what this is about. Young people engaging themselves and talk. And we can have, like the last time we had political education classes where we were talking about the Constitution and things like that.
Would you do that again?
We'll do that again.
Okay.
It's always about teaching, and it's always about talking and, trying to build people's understanding of the issues that we have. So I think that point is going to stay.
Okay. And you think that's what sets your demonstration apart from other demonstrations that take place?
Yes, that is a learning activity. It's an opportunity to educate. There has to be a broader goal of building citizens' confidence about how we protect our democracy.
And
come and learn.
I did say that your final words, but I'm going to ask you another question out of this conversation. It has to do with
who is Oliver now?
Okay, I probably would adopt Olivia at this point. So, one of the topical issues at the moment is, for instance, the Electoral Commission and demands by the opposition NDC for a forensic audit of the register because they detected some irregularities in there. There was a protest yesterday. Prior to that, the response from the EC was that the calls for protest was the calls for an audit was premature, and they can do it on their own. And there were subtle jabs at the NDC that in 2016 there were plants and animals and stuff in the register. They didn't take interest. What are your general thoughts on what has been transpiring between the NDC and the Electoral Commission?
3 thoughts. The first one is that it wasn't a jab at the NDC, but it's the Electoral Commission taking a jab at itself. They forget that it's a continuing institution, even though at various points it seemed that the divide between it and the government is not clear. So when they say that in 2016 we registered people with plans, it seems to me that they are suggesting to us that we have not always done a good job. That's what it seems to me. But I've always asked the question, and this is where I struggle with the Electoral Commission: who is going to pay for the audit? It's not Jean Mensa and the people who work there. It's Ghanaians who are going to pay for the audit. Who needs to have more trust in the Electoral Commission? It's Ghanaians. So they will pay for it and they will do it. So it's not a money issue. That the argument has not been that there's no money, right? So I don't understand where the reticence is. In fact, I saw that the youth organizer of the MPP made a statement that they will go to the Supreme Court if the EC tries to do a forensic audit. I don't understand. Somebody has compiled a register, and they said they have done a good job. And we said, okay, appoint a third party to evaluate and check what you have done. In fact, all our institutions tell us that they've done a good job till the Auditor General goes in. So it is routine in our body politics. It's not a strange idea to audit public institutions for the work they have done. And they said no, but why? So I'm still struggling to understand. They didn't give reasons in that statement, but give us more reason why an audit is necessary. So I still don't understand the argument as to why. Thirdly, it's not an NDC problem, right? Yes, they have been the loudest in demanding for it because they are participants in our elections. But the election is ours. Well, the process of electing leaders is our responsibility. So it's not between the NDC and them. Of course, they have the groups that have mobilized the most and loud on this. But I've seen other civil groups also speak up in demand for this as well, right? So, I personally, I didn't even register to vote, so perhaps I've checked out of this process. That's why I haven't spoken personally on it. But those who are interested in, going about speaking about voting, I think everybody's interested or should be interested in demanding a reformed, how do you call it again? Electoral
Commission.
You see, it's not the only thing I forget. The short man is not the only one I forget.
Oliver, thank you very much for gracing our studios this morning. Oliver Baker-Vormawor, he is the Constitutional Rights and Policy Strategy Advisor for Democracy Hub. Democracy Hub, they are the organizers of the Fix the Country demonstration as well as the Occupy Jilobi protest. And so this time around, they are protesting the degradation of our environments by illegal mining. They say action must be taken. First of all, we're starting off with accountability. That is their argument, that at least the Minister must go. The Mineral Commission's boss, the EPA. I think there's one more that I've missed out on the name. But yes, they are saying that we should start from there, that those people have shown that they have failed and therefore they must step aside. From there, we can progress with the conversation. This is still the Morning Star here on Star 103.5 FM. We'll go for a break. When we return, we are going to talk about issues relating to the power sector. The PRC has sounded the alarm. It says that ECG is bankrupt.
Let's make mental health a top priority. On October 10th, 2024, dive into a world of discovery and empowerment at the whole